on today's episode of Aneesh Thing, we are talking about how to lead a more sustainable life. And the guest is my sister, Sonika. I've seen her personal journey into sustainability and it's actually been really inspiring. So I really hope after this episode, you're able to take away at least a few tips and just be a little more mindful about sustainability. So welcome to the show. I might call Sonika Didiji a few times, and that is because since third grade, I was told by my father to call my sister Didiji. And that thing is stuck, and Sonika sometimes gets offended if I don't call her that. So we might switch between the two, but welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start with your journey in sustainability and how that came about.
So see, I think all of us know things like plastic is bad and it's polluting and, the oceans are getting polluted and all of that. And I knew that myself. But I think in everyone's life, some incident or something triggers off this whole thought process, and that's when they start realizing that their own lifestyle is harmful and what they can do about it. So for me, it was the birth of my son, and it was rather accidental that I bought this cloth diaper off Amazon, and I had no idea how to use this thing. So I started doing a little bit of research, and when I started doing this research, I realized that disposable diapers are actually very harmful for the environment. And not just that, they're also very harmful for your baby because they're made of plastic and they have a lot of toxic chemicals which convert the liquid into gel and things like that. And they're bleached and, a lot of those things, which most of us have no idea about.
Yeah, we'll never think of
You'll never think of that, right? I mean, you will think of a plastic bag being bad or a plastic straw being bad, but you'll never think of things like this. So I started doing a lot of research and I realized that we are actually living in the biggest garbage crisis in the history of this world. It's an enormous issue everywhere in the world, not just India, everywhere. And then, it's just that whole thing of, oh my God, I have brought my child into this world and what are we doing? We are literally just destroying everything. So the whole thing was that, okay, for his future and, we have to do something about this. And on an individual level, like you cannot change policy and you cannot make these very big decisions. But on an individual level, if you can reduce your waste, it's the biggest contribution you can make towards climate change. And when I started doing my research on that, whatever I could do or whatever we could do as a household to reduce our waste, that was our aim. So we started finding ways to do that slowly and gradually. And of course, nothing happened overnight.
Yeah.
It takes time and nobody should even try to do it overnight. It's just a slow and gradual process. But the whole thing is about becoming conscious. The moment you become conscious and you become mindful about something like this, you will automatically start thinking of alternatives. That's what happened with us.
Yeah, and that's what happened we'll touch upon this a little later, like even our travels, when we traveled recently. This whole mindfulness thing, right, which I would assume that I'm someone who's being mindful about it. But there were so many things I was just not being mindful about. So starting with sustainability at home, what are baby steps, or rather the first steps people can take at home to start with?
I think the most important thing is for us to understand that waste is generated because of overconsumption. And we are all in that whole era of just consuming mindlessly. So if we can think about it and if we can just cut down on our consumption, it is a huge step. You may not need to do anything else. Just start by thinking about every purchase that you make. Not even if it is not every purchase. If you're just somebody who shops randomly, which I used to do, by the way.
Yeah, we all do, I think.
I would be on shopping apps if I was bored, if I was happy, if I was sad. There was anything and everything led to me buying stuff online for no rhyme or reason. So, by the way, what I did was I deleted all the shopping apps from my phone. And the other thing I did was the moment I would get an ad on social media, I would say, hide this ad and it's irrelevant. So I have stopped getting ads. So I'm never tempted by sales or to buy stuff. So the first step can be to actually reduce your consumption across everything, whether it's clothes or shoes or makeup or food or, whatever you consume mindlessly. If you can just become a little mindful about what you consume and consume less, and just try and first use what you have, that is a very good step towards being sustainable, because if you consume less, you will generate less waste.
Yeah.
The second thing that you can do is try and avoid disposable things, anything which is single use, even if it's made of a sustainable material like tissue paper, cotton balls. These are all sustainable, biodegradable, compostable, whatever. But there's a lot of resources that go into producing that, and you're going to use it for 5-10 seconds and throw it. So it's a waste. So if you can just look at using reusable things, like instead of a takeaway coffee cup, if you can carry your own coffee cup, instead of using a cotton ball, you can just use cloth, or just alternatives like this. If you find, most of them will be in your house. So if you can start doing that, you will generate a lot less waste than you probably are.
Like tissue is one thing that you mentioned, right? I think a lot of us are just programmed to use
multiple.
Multiple. Like one, not only one. Like take out 5 and use it, right?
Especially if you go to a bathroom in in any public place and you have those dispensers, you'll see people taking out 3 or 4 at one go, and you actually don't need so many. You only need one.
And at home, you can definitely do cloth napkins.
At home, people use towels, but in public places, people do that. So if you can just carry your own, and you saw us on the trip. I just carry a face towel with me everywhere I go.
I got scolded on our holiday to Georgia because at one place I used a tissue paper at a restaurant. And Sonika was like, "Are you not carrying your own paper napkin?"
So, I think using reusable things instead of disposable things. And let me tell you, when I started getting into this, I realized that there is a reusable option for every single disposable thing that you can think of. So there is no dearth of alternatives. You just have to look for them. So that is one way that, you can start doing this at home. Another thing that you can do is when you go to buy something, carry your own cloth bag. I mean, this is like it sounds very obvious. But when you go out in a market, you will realize it's not so obvious, right? So what we do is we have a few bags in our car. We have bags at our door, like they're hanging just by the door, so that when you're leaving, you don't forget. Even right now in my bag, there's a cloth bag. So just let's say I'm going and I feel like buying something, I already have it. And also if you can look for, when you go to buy anything in a local market, you will find that you can get a lot of stuff without packaging. Okay, it can be a local kirana store, it can be a supermarket or a hypermarket, even in like Nature's Basket and Hypercity and things like that. You have a lot of stuff which is not packaged. So if you carry your own containers, you can actually buy stuff without packaging, and you'll realize that if you start doing that, the amount of plastic that comes into your house from packaging gets reduced significantly.
I'll actually go back to this example of you buying macadamia nuts on the trip. Now, something like dry fruits, right? If you're buying loose dry fruits, people would give that to you in a plastic bag or something, and you carried your own cloth bags. Yeah. And again, this is something I would have personally never thought about.
And neither had I thought about these things, right? So that's what I'm saying. Once you start doing it, even things like you can go to a bakery and buy pastries in your own container. You can buy anything actually. You can buy mithai in your own containers. You can buy paneer in your own container. You can buy literally anything and everything which is not packaged. Yeah. If you take your container, nobody's going to refuse it. I mean, what's it to them?
Yeah.
So that's another way of trying to reduce your waste. And then I would say that when you're buying something, look for sustainable brands, because there are a lot, and in India especially, there are so many good, genuinely sustainable brands. Try and buy from them, because you'll get clean products which are not bad for you, and they come in minimal packaging, and most of these will also get shipped to you plastic free. So when you're buying, buy from them, and encourage these brands, because we really need them to.
Of course.
We need them to come.
I think towards later part of the episode, we'll perhaps also talk about some of these brands, sustainable brands in the country. So apart from consumption, I find it really fascinating that at your place you don't have a dustbin.
Yeah.
So tell me that.
So it took us a year, like I told you, and then what we realized was that because our waste was very less, and whatever we were generating was mostly recyclable, so we tried to look for a recycler, and we found one. So we started giving our dry waste for recycling, and then we started composting at home, which was way easier than I had thought it would be. It was pretty simple. And then we realized that we were not throwing anything in the dustbin. Right? So one day I declared, and you know me, I'm like that, right? I'll just declare something and then everybody has to follow it. So I declared that we are not going to have any dustbins. So all our dustbins went into the storeroom. And it's been 2 years. There is nothing to throw. So it was, I think, again, when you reduce it and when you start taking care of your waste within your house, like your wet waste, everything that comes from the kitchen gets composted at home, and the dry waste gets cleaned, stored in a bag, and every month we give it for recycling. We don't need a dustbin anymore.
So let's talk about both of these aspects one by one. One is the composting part. Let's start with that.
So composting at home is actually pretty simple. We live in an apartment in Bombay. We have a small balcony. And you can either buy a ready-made composter, which again there are several in the market. I have one from a company called Daily Dump, which is doing amazing work in this area. You can even get, you can get a plastic bucket and drill holes in it, and you can use that. So there are various ways of doing it, but it's basically, it takes, we timed it once. It takes less than a minute a day. All you have to do is put your wet waste in it. There is something called browns, which is either dried leaves or coco peat. You just put it on top of it, and that's all you need to do. And within a month, all your wet waste gets converted into compost. And the great part about this is that if you let your kitchen waste go to the landfill, it actually is, that is the biggest concern in a landfill, is your organic waste, because it starts releasing methane gas in a landfill. And that's one of the big issues from landfills.
Okay.
So if you compost it instead, you're converting into something which actually absorbs carbon. Okay, and it nourishes the soil and makes the soil like a living soil. So you're doing two things. A, you're stopping that methane emissions. And the second thing that you're doing is you're converting something into something that's actually absorbing carbon. So it's a double benefit of composting at home.
And when I heard the first time, I'm imagining a setup that has some amount of stink to it.
Zero.
And
Zero stink. There is no stink. So basically, composting is a process where you are supposed to layer your wet waste with dry material, browns. If you do the layering properly, there is absolutely no stink. Stink comes when it's not happening properly. And of course, it would take some trial and error for you to get used to it. But it's very simple. And if you just maintain that ratio, there will be no stink. And I often tell people that if I kept my composter in my drawing room, you will not know that it's a composter, because there is absolutely no stink at all.
Yeah.
But you do get like maggots, and you get insects which are always inside. They don't like to come out. They're very shy. They are very harmless. My son loves them. If he doesn't see a maggot, he'll be like, why are there no maggots in this? So, the first time I saw it, I was screaming, and I was telling my husband that, please, you do it. You do this, I can't do it. But I got used to it, and they're really harmless, and they are very good for composting. And you have this whole, what do you call it? You have this whole thing happening in your house in this little pot. You have this, biodiversity in your little thing at home. And after a month, when you open it and you see that all that thing that you thought was waste has become this beautiful brown thing, you can't see anything that you put in. Everything has got converted into that brown, black, gold, as they call it. It's amazing. It's like a miracle happening in your house.
Yeah, that is really fascinating. What about Bioenzyme?
So Bioenzyme is something that we make at home, which is a multi-purpose cleaner. It's basically a fermented liquid which you make from leftover fruit peels, and you add some jaggery to it, and then you put it in a container and you leave it for a month or 2 months to ferment. And this liquid actually has active microbes which are very good for cleaning. So you can use it. We use it as a floor cleaner, we use it as a surface cleaner, we use it as a glass cleaner. I mean, we use it for various things at home. And it's absolutely biodegradable, and when it's going down your drain, it's actually purifying the water instead of polluting it. And a very fascinating thing I read very early on was that your home is more polluted than outside. Okay, and a lot of this is coming from the toxic cleaners that we use at home. So your floor cleaner, your Colin spray, your Harpic, all these things are full of very, very toxic chemicals. So if you can just use something like Bioenzyme, and if you can't make it, you can buy it. A lot of people make and sell Bioenzyme. But if you just replace it with this one thing, you're healthy yourself, and you're also not polluting the water.
Yeah, and you get a lot of cleaners where I think every year or 2 years you'll have advertising saying 2x stronger and like new formulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you do wonder it can't be that great for you, right? If you're cleaning your dining table with it, then you're gonna ultimately later sit and eat
one thing I started doing was reading the labels. Once you start reading the labels on these products and just go and search what they are.
Yeah.
Like for example, toothpaste has detergent in it, and you're brushing your teeth with it. So basically, you are ingesting detergent. Would you like to do that? You have microplastics in these things. So I think when you start becoming more aware, and you start reading what's actually going into all these things that you're consuming, you'll realize that they are actually very harmful for you. Forget the environment for a minute. They're also not good for you. So, why consume them?
Fair. So your wet waste is now used for composting and for Bioenzyme. And you said your dry waste will go for recycling. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So we found in Bombay, there's an amazing recycler called 5-Hour Cycle. And they're actually not a recycler themselves. They collect waste and they send it to various recyclers for various materials. So they collect waste from every part of Bombay, and they have these bi-weekly drives. So they come to your area, they'll come to your doorstep and they'll take everything. All you have to do is make sure that whatever you're giving to them is clean. To give something for recycling, it's very important for it to be clean, especially if it had food in it.
Okay.
So if you had any packet, if you had any container, takeaway box, whatever, all we do is we just put it in the kitchen along with the other utensils, and whoever is washing just washes that. It's clean and dry. And I always tell people, just make sure dry waste is dry. There's nothing wet in it. Just give it to them and they will segregate it and they will send it to the respective streams. And if you're not in Bombay, you can just go online and check for dry waste collection centers in your city. So every city also has dry waste collection centers, which are government centers, and they also collect this because see, there is a lot of value in this waste. There is a lot of money. Okay, so if it reaches, even if you have a raddiwala, give it to him because he's collecting it from you because he's going to make money off it. So it will reach the right place. So whether you can give it to a raddiwala, whether you can give it to a recycler, whether you can send it to a dry waste collection center, you just have to look for it once. So it's, once you find that, then every month or whenever you can, just give it to them. That's what we do.
And do these, like this company you spoke about, do they charge you a fee or
No, they don't charge anything.
They're making their money by selling it off to someone else.
But they don't give you any money either because they are providing you the service, right? They're sending a vehicle to your house. So you just give it to them and they make their money from selling the scrap.
So these are things you can do on a daily basis. What if it's a special occasion? What if people are coming over? What if it's a festival?
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of waste generated there, right? So are there any tips that people can use for such occasions?
Yeah, absolutely. So my son's first birthday, in fact, we had a zero waste theme. And
which kid doesn't want that?
It was his first birthday. He had no idea. He didn't know anything. So we've done 3 birthdays so far. And what we've realized is that all you have to do is don't have balloons. Okay, balloons are single-use plastic, by the way. I don't know why nobody thinks of balloon as a single-use plastic, but it is.
I don't understand balloons. I don't know why kids I can still understand. As grown-up people getting fascinated by balloons blows my mind.
Yeah, I really don't understand those balloon walls.
Yeah.
Anyway. So balloons are actually extremely harmful because a lot of animals think it's attractive and they eat them because they're obviously lying by the road and things like that. So if you can just do a few things, don't have balloons, don't have disposable crockery and cutlery. These are the 2 things. If you do these 2, like for my son's birthday, what we did was we just took all the plates that we had in our house. And if you don't have enough, a lot of people will say, oh, I don't have so many. Borrow it from people. Who cares about plates being different? Nobody.
Yeah,
no kids. Nobody does. Instead of having tissue paper, we had a lot of... So we just kept a basket with lots of cloth napkins in that. Okay. A lot of people actually don't end up even using a napkin. Okay. Just have your regular steel, ceramic, whatever material plates you have. Just have a lot of plates. You have glasses. You have your regular cutlery, your steel cutlery. And if you don't have disposable stuff, you will not generate a lot of waste. And another thing that we have been doing for birthdays especially is trying to make a lot of the food at home. And of course, Mama is an amazing baker, so the cake comes from there. But you can find a lot of home bakers who will also give you, without too much of packaging. You can request for less packaging. You can get food from places which, either you can go and collect it yourself. But even that is not as much as the waste that comes from disposable crockery and cutlery. And for some reason, I've realized even if people have 10 people over, for some reason they will get disposable plates.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's just from a convenience, like that mindset is that it's easier to just throw all of this.
Yeah, correct. It's just that. And it takes nothing really. I mean, one day in a year or 2 or 3 days in a year, if somebody has to wash 20 plates instead of 10 plates, it's not such a big deal. But if you can just avoid those few things. And also for birthdays, by the way, on my son's birthdays, I've had older kids, not his age, even older kids. Not one kid asked me, Auntie, why is there no balloon? No, I don't think kids care about the balloons. Okay, they just want to have a good time. They want good cake. They want to play games. They want return gifts. And that's all they care about. They are not interested in your decoration. That is for the parents.
You had cool return gifts as well.
Yeah, we did. So 2 things we did. One, we told everyone no gifts. Okay, so they were not allowed to.
Again, what a beautiful kid's birthday party. He would be so happy. No balloons, no gifts. Great.
So what we told everyone was get 2 pre-loved things from your house. So a book, let's say a book or a toy that you no longer need or you've already played with. We wrapped them in newspaper and we put them all in a big bag. And when the kids were leaving, each kid could pick out something from the bag. So one thing was for Abir and the second thing was for so Abir got gifts.
He did get gifts. Okay, cool.
He got gifts, but they were pre-loved. They were not new. Yeah. They were not new things. And the other thing I did was I thought that this is a very good opportunity for me to give sustainable return gifts as a way of introducing those things to parents. So I gave a reusable cutlery kit, which is like a travel cutlery kit to all the kids, which is very handy, very useful to us. I give them a gardening tool kit, which is also very cute. Kids love all this garden. At least my son loves gardening, so I'm assuming kids would find it.
Mali banao sabko. Great.
So, So what I've started doing is just look for sustainable brands. You can give them anything. You can make a hamper of a nice soap or a toy or anything which is from a sustainable brand and give that as a return gift. But return gifts are important. You cannot do birthday parties without return gifts. Otherwise, the kids are not going to come the next year.
I do like the idea. Perhaps this summer also introducing kids at a very early age to the concept of pre-loved stuff. Which
so
I think
Abir knows, by the way, that he knows that this so and so bhaiya sent it to me because he's now उनको छोटा हो गया तो मेरे को भेज दिया, and all his clothes and his shoes are all pre-loved. So he knows it and he's happy about it. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I think that's just a mindset, right? That a second-hand or a pre-loved thing is just not as good or because someone else has used it in the past.
Yeah. In fact, for kids, I just wanted to touch upon this. A lot of people go overboard buying things for their kids. Kids really don't need too much. And I'm not saying deprive your kid. I'm saying give your kid everything. But if you can get hand-me-downs, if you can get pre-loved, there are so many stores selling pre-loved stuff. It's cheaper. You are not going to use it forever. And you're not wasting new resources on things for your kids. So in fact, Abir's, I think 90% of his stuff is pre-loved. So, and he knows it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What about, let's say, at his birthday party, or actually I'll start this again. In fact, today is Raksha Bandhan, today is Rakhi, and we're recording this episode. And the Rakhi that I have on is a cloth Rakhi, which is 3 years, third year of me.
It's the third year wearing the same Rakhi.
Which kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah. So this is actually made from fabric waste. This is a Love the World Today Rakhi, and they have made it from their whatever waste is generated from them making their clothes. They make accessories out of them, which is also a fantastic thing, right?
You also have those flowers at home, right? That look like marigolds, which are actually surprisingly realistic, and they're all cloth.
They are very realistic. I love Upcycle products because Upcycle products are made out of stuff which was otherwise going to be sent to a landfill most probably.
Yeah.
It was something waste and you made something out of it. So yeah, this is a company called Use Me Works in Delhi, and Abir's first birthday, a lot of the decoration was from them. And the best part is that these things are so unique because they are made by, let's say you got a batch of fabric and you made something with it. Nobody will ever have the same thing, right? So it's also unique, it's different. And the marigold flowers that we got on one Diwali, we've used it now for 2 Diwalis and I don't know how many birthdays and whatever. So it's so easy. You just wash it and you can, you use it again, then they look beautiful. So I think upcycling is amazing. I buy stuff from a lot of brands which are into upcycling fabric waste and other materials. And I would buy that rather than buy, even when I'm buying something, if I can find an upcycled product, I would rather buy that than buy a new one.
Yeah. I like the idea that no 2 or 3 will be the same.
They'll never be the same.
It's so funny how a lot of brands will use that as a marketing gimmick actually and charge you more for it.
Correct. It's bespoke.
Yeah, it's bespoke. Yeah, true. So we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about sustainability during travels, which is something we experienced together recently.
Hello, everybody. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On the Habit Coach, Ashton explains the meaning of red flags in relationships and the fears developing around them. On the Filter Coffee podcast, Karthik talks to Nishta Nitya, mission head at the UN, about the intricacies of gender equality and the essential change in societal outlook towards women. On the Ideas Project, this is an exciting new show you should check out if you haven't yet. Anupam interacts with Swarup Mohanty, who is the CEO at Mirai Assets, and Deepak Shenoy, who is the CEO of Capital Mind. They discuss the ongoing savings disruptions in the Indian markets. On Cock and Bull, Cyrus, Kajol, Vineet and Shreyas discuss their Independence Day celebrations. I dropped into this episode for a short time as well. And on All Things Policy, the Takshashila folk discuss the twists and turns in Delhi's excise policy. Once again, I'd like to remind you all, please do check out our merch. It's available on IVM Podcast website. Go click the shop tab and you'll be able to see our first collections of t-shirts. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Remember, we got a bunch of YouTube channels as well, and if you want to check that out, go to our website, ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. We have a list of all those channels. And remember, do tell a friend if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter. Word of mouth is one of the most important and best ways for us to get the word out about this podcast. Also, it's a way for you to have discussions about a podcast with your friends. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Boat Lifestyle, Checkpoint Software, Small Case, and Intel vPro. Thank you so much for making this possible.
So coming back to travel, and I was really surprised by how much less waste was generated on this travel trip over 7-8 days, down to even when you order a Coca-Cola. What Sonika and Sarah did on the trip was that every time they would order a Coke on the table, they would instruct the staff to not bring a straw. And it's surprising that those kind of small things actually end up playing a larger role. On this trip, we would have at least consumed otherwise 40-50 straws, which would have all been in waste right now. So tell me more about traveling and how you can just be a little more mindful and again generate less waste.
For travel, to reduce your waste, you can do a couple of things. One is carry all your own toiletries so that you don't end up using those tiny bottles and sachets or whatever in hotels. So what you can do is carry a bottle with you which you can refill from anywhere so that you don't have to buy bottled water. Carry a couple of cloth napkins or face towels. We carried a lot because we have a kid. So we carried that so that we don't have to use any tissue paper. And we carried a lot of cloth bags and cloth pouches that, and we bought so many fruits.
Yeah, we got fruits in the steel containers.
Yeah, we got fruits in steel containers. We got them in our cloth bags. So if you can just think of what you're going to be using, and if you can just carry some of those things with you, and it didn't even take up much place. I carried 2 containers if I had to get takeaway food from somewhere, and we ended up getting fruits in that. I carried a few cloth bags. We all carried a bottle with us, which we filled wherever we could. And we carried cloth napkins.
Yeah.
And just by doing this,
you also carried a steel straw and some forks and spoons.
Yeah, I carried steel straws because, I think adults can do without straws. But with a kid, if you have a few steel straws, I also carried cutlery. Because, if you're on the road and you want to buy something and eat, then you'll get disposable cutlery if you have your own.
Which is what I did. I got an ice cream.
Blasphemy. You're traveling with me and got an ice cream with a plastic spoon.
And then I was about to eat with a plastic spoon and I got that stare from her saying, you're not carrying your own spoon.
And I was carrying it. You could have taken it from me.
So again, these I think these things are easy to do. And I think this also brings me somewhere to myths, right? Because you expect this to be tough. And it wasn't tough, at least on this trip. So
again, it's only about being mindful. Okay? That, I'm going on a trip. What can I do to not generate waste on the trip? And I've realized that the most common thing is plastic bottles or water, right? Because how many people actually carry their own bottle? It may seem very obvious, but people don't do it. So if you can just do that one thing, and if you can just carry a cloth napkin, you will end up saving so much waste.
And that's on a daily basis. In fact, even when you take a flight, right, the amount of plastic generation there.
Yeah, everywhere. So, and now, by the way, every airport, after security check, you will find a place to fill your bottles. So, carrying bottles, carrying your own bottle and refilling it is not difficult. So many people ask me, how did you manage with a kid? Just refill it in your hotel or wherever you're staying. And most of these places, you can actually use tap water. We'd use tap water. We are not so fussy about things like that.
I think the good thing is a lot of hotels are now moving to like glass bottles or glass jars in the rooms that they'll, keep by default and not plastic. And
correct. Yeah. Correct. So, I think just carry your own stuff and it just takes a little bit of planning. That's it. So, you just have to plan for it, carry it with you. That's all. And then you'll obviously use it.
Yeah. I think we should also talk about greenwashing, which is, this assumption that you are using something more sustainable or you are being more environmentally friendly. And in reality, that may not be the case at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think greenwashing is also companies playing with the sentiments of consumers, getting them to believe that what they're using is actually sustainable or eco-friendly. This word is the most abused word, I think, eco-friendly. It's eco-friendly, but it's actually not. And that is prevalent across the industries, like from fashion to consumer, personal care products, through all sorts of products. There's a lot of greenwashing. And I think it should be a criminal offense because you're actually forcing people to continue using something harmful instead of getting them to use something which is not harmful. So this whole thing of biodegradable, everything on this planet is ultimately biodegradable. It may take 800 to 1,000 years, but it will eventually break down. Or compostable or recyclable. So my thing is, all these may be, they may be recyclable only if you're going to recycle it yourself or give it for recycling it yourself. Or if you're going to compost it yourself, only then it is compostable. The moment you throw something in your dustbin, it is neither biodegradable nor compostable nor recyclable. It's none of those because it will go to a landfill. And in a landfill, food waste, which is the most biodegradable thing on this planet, also does not get composted. So there is nothing that gets composted or biodegraded, or nothing happens in a landfill. So, all this is just tactics to sell more products. And the other issue is that there is no standard certifications, or there is, anybody can say biodegradable on their packaging. They don't have to take approvals from anyone, or anyone can say anything. So it becomes a little difficult for a regular consumer to really understand whether something is sustainable or not. And I feel that I do a lot of research, but everyone may not want to do it or not have the time to do it. So what I've started doing is just relying on sustainable marketplaces. These are online marketplaces that sell sustainable products, and they are doing the due diligence for you. So you know that if I'm buying something from their site, it is, they've already figured out whether it's sustainable or not.
Can you tell me a few of these?
Yeah. So there's Brown Living. There is Honest, which is AWENEST, Honest, and not HONEST. There is a store called Ulisu. There is a store called Gift Green. So these are 4 that I use. And you will get all sorts of products on these sites, and they're all sustainable, and you will get everything plastic free.
Now, I was just thinking when you said about this compostable or whatever thing. Now, of course, I understand that I should be carrying my own coffee cup to a coffee shop if I want to do a takeaway coffee. But I've seen this at a lot of coffee shops where you get a takeaway and they put the lid on top.
Which is plastic.
And even if it's not, whatever it is, some new material or whatever it says, biodegradable or compostable. And as a consumer, I'm thinking, okay, you know what, this is a healthier, not healthier, like this is a more eco-friendly option I'm doing. But you're right, that's gonna, I'm not the one who's recycling it or composting it. It's just getting thrown ultimately.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention was paper cups. Okay, we all think that paper cups are, they're made of paper. They're obviously better than plastic cups. Most paper cups have a plastic lining inside because paper on its own does not have the capacity to hold a liquid, okay, and especially hot liquid. So most of these, and there are so many people who have tried to compost it at home, and then, you're left with this plastic sheet. Everything else gets composted. So most of them have plastic inside them. My general advice to everyone and my rule for myself is, if it's a disposable thing, try and avoid it. Even if it's made of paper or even if it's made of a biodegradable material, try and avoid it because it does go into waste.
Great. So before we end the episode, any last comments, any closing comments?
I would just like to say that, living sustainably is not difficult. We live in a nuclear family, my husband, my son and myself, and both my husband and I work. We have busy lives, so it's not like the whole day we are doing things like this. And it's really about making different choices. So it's not something which is difficult to do. It is not expensive. It is not time consuming. It can be done. And just take small steps and do whatever you can.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I will catch up with you at home. See you soon.
Thank you for having me.